So we just completed the drawing of the shoe, but this is a shoe in a completely flat viewpoint, and it's not really very interesting to us from an art standpoint. It's much more beautiful if we can have the shoe in a foreshortened view coming towards us. So now I'm going to talk to you, as I draw, I'm going to talk to you about some of the ways that we can get this illusion that the shoe is coming out us in space, okay? So I'm going to hold the shoe from my viewpoint. I can see it and it's coming towards me. I'm going to start with an underdrawing, and I'm going to now I want to think of this shoe when I'm drawing it in a foreshortened view as almost as if it's a landscape. And we have, the shoe has a foreground, almost it has a middle ground, and it has a background. Even though this shoe is really only maybe, a foot long, I still want to divide it in my mind to think that it has these different parts. Now, what we're going to do here in terms of the foreground is objects in the foreground are bigger than objects in the background. And I am going to exaggerate the size of this foreground object to make it feel like it's coming out at me. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than I really think it is. So that's my first thing. And then conversely, I'm going to pull the size of the background down a little bit. I'm going to make the heel a little bit smaller than it actually is. Okay? Okay, I'm going to really lightly just put some shading in very quickly because I know the light is coming from the side. It's coming from this side again, just like we have from this shoe. I'm going to put that shading in really lightly so I have something to work with, okay? Now I'm going to spend most of my time working on the foreground element, okay? I'm going to draw this buckle. Spend a little bit of time getting it a little more careful. I'm drawing using a contour line. And so another one of the ideas that's very important for the foreground is contrast. In other words, if we're working with grays and blacks and whites, which we are, we want to have our darkest darks and our lightest lights in the foreground. So I want to have my mark making so that I have some really dark darks in this foreground. And I want to also leave some of the paper white so that I have a highlight on that. And maybe the belt buckle, it ends up being a little bit shiny. Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of a highlight right on the toe of the shoe. Okay, let's see if I can get this right. Okay, I am going to pull this down and I'm going to really pump the darks a little bit right here. Okay, so far we've talked about the foreground. Foreground is going to be bigger, and the background is going to be smaller. And then in the foreground, we're going to use contrast. And in the background, let's put this here, we're going to use low contrast, meaning grays. We're going to leave everything in the background pretty gray. And then we have a third thing that we're going to work on for the foreground, which is detail. If you think about a foreground, if you think about a landscape, in the foreground, for example, you might see trees and you might see even leaves on those trees. But if you see a tree in the background, the tree, if it's far away, is not going to have much detail. You're certainly not going to see leaves. You might not even see branches. So the detail in the background goes away. Same thing with the shoe. As you go back on the shoe, you're going to have less and less detail. Okay, now I'm going to do this line from the foreground to the background. And watch this. I'm going to press hard. And as I go back, I'm going to press lighter and lighter. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I've got the foreground, okay? Do you see how I feel that it's pressing hard and it's fading out as it goes back? I'm going to do the interior of the shoe now. I'm going to get that. Let's see. There we go. Okay? So as we go back with this shoe, I'm going to put this heel in. We have less and less detail, less sharpness. We don't want to put any really dark darks. If I was all of a sudden to pump this with a lot of darks, it would bring it forward. Just in the same way as a mountain that we're drawing in the background, or a tree that's far away from us, is going to have very little darkness or lightness. Same with the shoe. I'm going to have less and less detail, okay? But right in here, because it's closer, I'm going to gradually go back. It's trying to fade out. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of shading in here, just as if the shoe is sitting on a table. Okay, just push this just a little. Even in terms of the heel, do you see how the front part of the heel here is going to be a little bit darker, have a little bit more sharp contrast than the back part, okay? So we've talked about in the foreground, you're going to have it bigger. You're going to have a higher contrast, meaning darks and lights. You're going to have detail. And in the background, we're going to have no detail. Okay? Also, the foreground can be sharp focus. And the background, you can make it a little bit blurry. And you can see that I've done that just with lines. I'm almost made it sort of fuzzy just with using some cross hatching. But here I've tried to make the focus much sharper. Let's see, I need to get a little bit of, okay? Does that make sense? It's a challenge to do this sort of thing, and you can see that I'm struggling, and don't give up. Try your object first flat, and then try your object coming towards you, and see if you can have that feeling as if the shoe is almost coming out at you. And good luck and have fun.